These are a specific type of problem, and the reason they're so specific is because they don't factor, because there are no factors of 83 that add together and give you 4. But because the leading coefficient is 1 and the middle number is even, then the choice is to solve this problem by completing the square. Guys, and when you complete the square, you have to know these set of steps. If you don't know these set of steps, guys, completing the square is not going to make any sense to you. Guys, the first thing I have to do when I complete the square is I have to create space. And what I mean by create space is I have to get that 83 to the other side. So what I do is I subtract 83 and get it over there. And that's what this step is right here. This first step is creating space. Okay. Then the second step right here, the step where I take half of the middle term, because I said only pick ones that are even. Could you pick one that's odd? Yeah, it was just going to be a fraction. And the fraction ones are easier to work using the quadratic formula. But what's the easiest method of any of it? Yeah, don't forget to check if it would factor. We've already decided A, it doesn't factor. B, this has a leading coefficient of 1 and a middle term that's even. So then I take half of the middle term and square it, plus 4 plus 4. All right, and now this next little section right here, guys, I do all of this stuff kind of really quick. And this is what I think threw you for a loop yesterday. As I take this thing right here and I factor it as b minus squared, and it will always factor that way. Guys, it will always factor as the square root of the first term and the square root of the last term over here, and use this sign. And the reason that's true is because when I take half of a middle number and square it, when I did this section up here in red, when I put that red 4 right there, I made what was on the left a trinomial perfect square. And the way a trinomial perfect square factors, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, is you take that number and that number. Or as in this problem, when this right here is a minus, this right here is a minus, it becomes minus b squared. And then, real quick, the last step is to take the square root of both sides, and I move the 2 to the other side, realizing that when it's a negative 2 on the left, what is it on the right? Negative. A positive 2. So I go v equals 2 I, because of the square root, and I'm done. Now, if I had done this using the quadratic formula, what answer would I come up with? Same thing. I would just have to reduce some fractions. All right, so let's go through this whole process again. Okay, if I go through all of this, I can go through the same thing, and I should get the same type answer. All right, so here we go. I start out with n squared plus 8n equals negative 44. Is this a problem that will factor? Are there factors of 44? Are there factors of 44?
Oh, yes.
Yes. 1 and 44, 2 and 22, 4 and... Do any of those combinations add together and give me 8?
No.
So I got no choice. I asked my what if question. What if it would factor? It won't. This one is quicker completing the square because 8 is even. Don't mess that up with this right here earlier today, guys. Earlier today, y'all told me this one was a candidate. Remember, the leading coefficient is 1. So n squared plus 16 is n plus 4 squared equal to negative 28. Got to see that. I'm thinking about, while I'm looking out at you guys, I'm thinking about the square root of 28 in my head. I'm thinking it's 4 times 7. So as I'm talking to y'all, what's turning inside my brain is figuring out what the square root of 28 is. So I then write n equals negative 4 plus or minus 2i on the square root of 7. Is that okay? One last one. Get one step ahead of me. I'm going to give you a little time here. A squared minus 16a equals negative 68. One step ahead of me. So one step ahead of me, I just created space. I'm going to give you just a second here. Because I don't know what to do. Follow these steps. Where's the middle number? Negative 16. So what does it say? Half of the middle term and square it. So right now in your head, you're thinking half of 16 squared. Add that 64 to both sides. A minus 8 squared equals negative 4. For those of you that are still struggling with every time this is a negative, guys, that's when I do my imaginary answer. I'm breaking the square root of 4 up into the square root of 4 and the square root of negative 1. Remember, the square root of negative 1 is I. So that's A equals, if it's a negative 8 on this side, again, I could take this same exact problem and I could calculate A is 1, B is negative 16, C is 68. And if I did it correctly, and I calculated my discriminant now, looking at this, based on that final answer, what do you know would happen when you calculated the discriminant? I got imaginary answers, so my discriminant must be negative. And it would be something that would reduce. That's why I don't want to go through this. That's why this I consider using the quadratic formula a little much. Right? That's called completing the square.